Many unexpected things happen. This little thing is like, we're so lucky that Catherine Millet is here, the famous author of the Sexual Life of Catherine M. and now Jealousy. But Catherine would prefer not to speak in English, so we needed somebody to translate. And we found somebody who's ready to save our life and to give us a huge hand. This is Melissa Unger from Artnet. So nice for you to do this job. And please, why don't you come and sit down and fill up here instead of standing up there? Come on. Kommen Sie auch, Herr Jansen. Kommen Sie nur. Trauen Sie sich. Es sind viele Frauen, das macht nichts. Genau, kommen Sie. Come on, move downwards here. It's going to be great. Gigi, come on. And for those of you who long for that moment of silence with Gangaji, what I definitely do, there she is. Gangaji is going to start her little workshop right after this Catherine Millet session. So thank you, Gangaji, for your flexibility. And now, Catherine Millet, est-ce que vous allez être debout? Ah, they took the chair away. She's not willing to sing. Well, it's okay. It's okay. We need 2 chairs, though. 3 chairs. Frau Eichel von Focus wird das moderieren, wunderbarerweise, and the fantastic Melissa Unger, our translator out of the blue. If anybody else is willing to translate, you're very welcome. Come down here and give her a hand. Nobody? Okay. Come on down, Phil. Sit in. Ah, see, females. Oh. Okay, give him a hand.
Thank you so much. I feel deeply honored to announce this very special guest at the DLD, and I think you should give her a warm welcome, please, for Catherine Millet.
Thank you very much. And sorry not to speaking English. It's not, my English is not so good, and especially about jealousy, it would be very difficult for me to speak in English.
That's no problem. In this Congress, we could say it was designed to seek for new images of women, images beyond all this artificial environment we have with entertainment, with infotainment, with the digital world. And I think today we learned a lot about images of women and identity of women, and now we go even further. In the morning we had a lecture by a lady who spoke about erotic capital. And in a way we follow her, trace it, but we do it a different way. And before we do it, I might add some information. As you probably know, Catherine Millet is the editor of Art Press. That's a high-minded arts magazine she founded more than 30 years ago. She is a sought-after curator. She is a well-respected art critic, and as well a well-respected member of French intelligentsia. Then, in a way, she broke all the rules because she made confessions in a book called The Sexual Life, a famous book, The Sexual Life of Catherine Millet. And many people were upset, this embarrassing honesty and this provoking precision in what she described her sex life, starting in childhood with masturbation, with erotic fantasies, and going to adulthood with a certain predilection for gangbangs, sex orgies, group sex, everything like that. So the purish, they were infuriated, and they didn't understand how a woman could write in this way about sex, disconnected to sentimental feelings like true love. This wasn't the point. 2 years ago, Catherine Millet followed up by a book, Jealousy, The Other Life of Catherine M. And in this book, I think you went even further, describing intimate state of quo of a woman who has discovered that the longtime partner sleeps with other women. So jealousy becomes an obsession, and there are letters, there is a diary, there is a photograph showing a young woman naked and pregnant. And so this obsession is a kind of torture. And it's very honest how Catherine Millet describes her emotions, and emotions, in a way, you know, everyone loves emotions, and we think about emotional intelligence, but this kind of emotion, jealousy, it's very rare that people write about this. And I think the point is that you made yourself very vulnerable by showing this side of your emotion. What gives you the courage to do that?
Alors, je pense que je ne me suis pas rendue plus vulnérable. Je pense au contraire que j'ai gagné une certaine force en écrivant ce livre.
She doesn't feel that she makes herself more vulnerable at all by writing this book. Quite the contrary, that she gained a measure of confidence and strength from expressing herself.
We spoke about performance today, how women that want a business career perform in social life just to be accepted. I think you do a very unusual way. You are accepted, but maybe it's because in the art scene, it's not this business life of lawyers and other contexts.
Vous savez, dans ses mémoires, Simone de Beauvoir dit une phrase qui m'a beaucoup frappée. Elle dit qu'elle n'a jamais eu de souci dans son milieu professionnel pour se faire reconnaître pour la qualité de son travail.
There's a phrase in Simone de Beauvoir's memoirs that struck her that says that she never had any trouble being recognized in a professional capacity.
Alors je crois que moi j'ai eu la chance comme elle de travailler dans un milieu intellectuel, artistique, évidemment beaucoup plus ouvert et notamment beaucoup plus ouvert aux femmes que si j'avais travaillé dans le business, la banque ou même l'université.
She had the same good fortune as Simone de Beauvoir in the sense that she also evolved professionally in an artistic environment that is more open-minded than, say, if she had come up through the ranks in banking or in university or in such thing.
Et je pense que même ce statut social, ce statut professionnel est quelque chose qui m'a protégée lorsque j'ai publié des livres sur ce qu'il y avait de plus intime dans ma vie.
She would go so far as to say that this type of professional status that she had attained in the arts protected her when she wrote a book that was so intimate and so avant-garde.
On était quand même obligé de me prendre un peu au sérieux.
They had to take her seriously.
You mentioned Simone de Beauvoir. She instilled the idea that gender is only a social thing, that there isn't a biological gender, but it's a socially learned thing. Do you think so? Do you agree?
Je pense que cette théorie de Simone de Beauvoir a été quand même un peu remise en cause par la suite. Il y a quand même des différences physiologiques qui nous modèlent avant même que vraiment l'éducation nous prenne en charge.
She thinks that Simone de Beauvoir's theory has been a little bit put to cause and challenged since then, because we've done some research now that there are some physiological bases that are ingrained even prior to socialization or education.
Et peut-être j'ajouterais une chose un peu paradoxale. Je pense que c'est finalement dans le domaine de la sexualité, plus que peut-être dans le domaine social et professionnel, que les femmes ont à apprendre.
She'd like to add something paradoxical. She feels that it is perhaps in the realm of sexuality, more so than in the professional or social realm, that women have something to learn still.
Je veux dire que c'est une démarche plus difficile pour une femme, me semble-t-il, que pour un homme, de découvrir sa propre sexualité.
She feels it's a much more difficult step to take for a woman to discover her own sexuality than it is perhaps for a man to do the same.
As a young woman, you left your milieu, your family, that didn't offer you a lot of opportunities to have an intellectual life. And going along to this intellectual development, there was the development of your sexual life. And you even write a sentence that sexual and intellectual excitement sometimes emerges. It's a coincidence between the both. Can you describe this?
Oh, alors, je suis désolée, mais je vais être obligée de rentrer dans des stéréotypes.
She apologizes, but she's going to have to fall into stereotypes now.
Vous savez, je ne sais pas si c'est pareil ici, mais en France, à une certaine époque, lorsqu'une femme réussissait socialement, on disait « Ah, c'est parce qu'elle a couché avec un tel ou un tel ».
She doesn't know if it's the same thing here, but in France, at a certain time, if a woman succeeded in business, people would say it's because she slept with so-and-so and so-and-so.
Et moi, j'ai fait ça. J'ai mélangé le sexe et le travail.
She did the same. She mixed sex and work.
Et je crois que j'avais suffisamment confiance dans mes propres capacités intellectuelles pour me permettre de mélanger les deux.
She felt it's because she had enough confidence in her own intellectual prowess to mix the two.
We got that today, that women always suspect their capacities. Yeah. But when you went in this art business, I think to feel free, it was a political thing to feel free also in sexual contexts. Do you still think there are some political implications with sex, how the sex life is going on and how the ideas are going on to find freedom in a way?
Oh.
Is there a coincidence between, you know, a very liberal sex life and a liberal intellectual life?
Je pense que malheureusement, nous vivons dans une époque assez régressive de ce point de vue-là. Je pense qu'il y a finalement aujourd'hui beaucoup plus de puritanisme qu'il n'y en avait lorsque j'avais 20 ans, 30 ans.
Unfortunately, we're living in a period that it's actually regressing, she feels like, and there's a lot more sexual puritanism? I'm losing my English. Puritanism than there was when she was about 20.
J'ai en tête quelques exemples récents d'affaires en France qui ont été rapportés dans la presse, de censure sur des œuvres à caractère sexuel. Et ce qui m'a beaucoup étonnée, c'est que cette demande de censure, elle venait de générations plus jeunes que la mienne.
She's thinking about a number of incidences that happened recently in the press where works that were a little risque were censored. And she's surprised to realize that this call for censorship came from a generation that's younger than her generation.
Do you think there's a drop back to the 50s in a way?
Oh, je pense pas, mais je pense que les conditions actuelles de la société favorisent beaucoup moins voilà, la recherche du plaisir, l'accomplissement dans le plaisir, notamment dans le plaisir sexuel.
She feels that the conditions of society currently are much less favorable to realizing the accomplishment of our sexual needs or discoveries.
What about showing emotions? You showed emotions like jealousy in this book. And what do you think in business performance? Women tend to hide their emotions because they think it's not professional to be emotional. What do you think of that?
Je travaille beaucoup avec des femmes et j'ai pas l'impression qu'elles cachent tellement leurs émotions, même dans le travail.
You understood. She said, I work with a lot of women and I don't get the sense at all that they hide their emotions at work.
Je préfère les garçons pour ça.
She likes boys better for that.
Je pense que j'ai une chose que j'ai peut-être réussi à faire, c'est à séparer aussi dans le regard des autres la personne que je suis en tant que journaliste, directrice de la rédaction d'un journal, et puis le personnage dans mes livres.
she feels that she's accomplished quite successfully separating her sort of professional face as the editor-in-chief of a magazine, as a journalist, from the character that she is in her books.
Et ce qui est très curieux, c'est que lorsque vous écrivez sur vous-même, et même que vous dites les choses les plus intimes sur vous-même, d'une certaine façon, elles deviennent comme appartenant à quelqu'un d'autre.
What's odd is when you write something about yourself, no matter how intimate it is, once it's written and it's out there, it belongs to somebody else.
Et ce qui me surprend parfois, mais qui m'amuse en même temps, c'est que des gens, des lecteurs, mais aussi bien des gens, par exemple, qui travaillent avec moi, me parlent de ce personnage, Catherine M., qui est dans les livres, comme si c'était quelqu'un d'autre.
What's really surprising is that strangers that she meets or even people that she works with will speak to her about the character in the book, Catherine M., as if it were someone other than her, even though they're discussing it with her. It's as if it's another person.
Et même, ils se permettent de dire des choses parfois assez osées sur ce personnage. Et moi, je me dis, mais est-ce qu'il se rend compte qu'il me parle à moi?
They even allow themselves to say some things that are a little risque about the person or a little over the line. And Catherine says to herself, do they realize that they're not talking about me? You know, that they're talking about...
Et je pense que ça, c'est la vertu de la littérature. C'est qu'elle transforme le réel, elle transforme les personnes et elle les transporte dans la fiction. Donc c'est une protection.
That's the amazing thing about literature, is that it transports people into a fiction. And in that way, it's a protection for her when she writes, to write a fictionalized account.
Let's go to the arts. You are an art critic, and I got the impression that female artists tend to work with not the traditional material. For example, female painters are seldom, but many female artists work, for example, with video, like Marie-Jo Lafontaine. Do you think this is typical to gain a new sort of terrain?
Oui, je pense que c'est assez juste, surtout pour les nouvelles générations. Je pense qu'il y a des femmes dans le domaine de la peinture, comme Maria Lasning, par exemple, qui ont fait des choses extraordinaires. Mais pour les nouvelles générations, je pense qu'elles se tournent plus, en effet, vers la vidéo ou la photo.
She thinks it's particularly true of the younger generations, other than Maria Lansing, who did mostly painting, what you said, but she feels that video is being embraced by a younger generation of women artists, particularly.
Et je pense que les femmes aujourd'hui s'emparent de ces nouveaux outils technologiques parce que ce sont les nouveaux outils pour décrypter le réel. Et qu'il y a une urgence pour les femmes à décrire le réel de leur point de vue.
She thinks that women are embracing these new technologies because they are an effective means of deciphering reality, their own reality. And women are very interested in finding their truth, and this is an effective tool for them to employ to reach that.
Par exemple, demain, à peu près à la même heure, je serai dans une discussion dans un festival de cinéma expérimental. Et je vais parler avec de jeunes cinéastes, vidéastes. Et l'une a fait par exemple un film sur sa propre famille, qui est une famille très traditionnaliste protestante en France.
Tomorrow at almost exactly the same time, she'll be speaking at an experimental film festival, and she'll be speaking to a young filmmaker who recently completed a documentary about her family that is a strict Protestant family.
Et je pense qu'elle montre dans ce film quelque chose de la famille que seule une femme peut montrer.
She believes that in this movie she's able to show something of the family that only a woman could show, very specific.
Et une autre jeune cinéaste qui m'intéresse, elle filme des relations sexuelles sadomasochistes.
And another young filmmaker that is of interest to her films sadomasochistic sexual relations.
Et je pense qu'elle aussi montre sur l'écran quelque chose qu'on n'a jamais montré sur un écran.
And she feels that she too shows something on the screen that no one else has ever shown on the screen.
Donc, messieurs, apprêtez-vous à voir maintenant le monde à travers les lunettes féminines.
So gentlemen, get ready to see the world through women's eyes now.
So one could say women describe the world and they show their point of view, and men invent the world. They want to create. That's the difference.
Ou le dominer.
Oui, that's the same. I think there are many questions in the audience, and there are 2 micros, and I would love you to pose some questions.
Okay, well then I start. Sorry. First of all, you've done a great job, really. Great, great, great. Catherine, you just said at the beginning, you said that finding the right way into sexuality and getting the maximum joy out of it is more difficult for women than it is for men. Do you think it would be good that if we had like an éducation non sentimentale but an éducation sexuelle, would this resolve some problems? Do you think there's a chance to have something, teach it in schools, or why don't we?
Oh, moi, je ne crois pas beaucoup. Maintenant, en France aussi, il y a, paraît-il, des cours d'éducation sexuelle, mais je ne suis pas sûre que ce soit si bien fait. Et je pense que moi, je ne crois pas beaucoup à l'éducation sexuelle donnée à l'école, mais je pense que pour les anciennes générations, il était normal que les jeunes hommes fassent leur propre éducation. On admettait qu'ils aillent dans les bordels pour faire leur éducation sexuelle. Et ça, c'est une pratique qui n'existe pas pour les femmes. Et je pense qu'il faut qu'aujourd'hui, la société admette, peut-être en choisissant d'autres moyens, que les femmes aussi aient leur temps d'éducation sexuelle.
She doesn't feel that at the school level, she says there are some programs in France that are beginning at the school level, but she doesn't think that they're very well done yet. And she doesn't believe personally in education for young children in school sexuality. But it was a tradition in previous generations that it was accepted that men did their own sexual education by going to brothels or prostitutes. It was kind of an accepted course. And she believes that women should be encouraged to also take on their own sexual education.
Moi, je pense qu'il faut, parce que c'est quelque chose qui reste encore très, très inscrit dans les mentalités, que la femme ne trouve son plaisir sexuel qu'à l'intérieur d'une relation vraiment amoureuse. Et ça, je crois qu'il faut rompre avec ce mythe.
There's still a myth, she believes, that women can only find sexual fulfillment and joy within a couple or in a loving relationship. And she feels that this is a myth that needs to be shattered. That's not the only place.
Moi, je pense que c'est une invention des hommes qui peuvent se dire, chaque fois qu'ils séduisent une femme, que c'est parce qu'elle est vraiment tombée amoureuse d'eux.
She thinks it's something invented by men so that every time they seduce a woman, they can say, she's only sleeping with me because she's so in love with me.
Are there other questions?
Yes, can I ask one?
Over there. Please. Haben wir noch ein
Is it
Mikrofon?
on? My question follows directly on from your comments just now. The feminist ideology would say that it's impossible for a woman to enjoy orgies, a gangbang, etc. And you broke that myth. But do you think that is, if you like, relatively rare for women generally? Do you have a view on that? Or do you think that that might actually be far more general than men would like to think and than feminists would like to think? And what has been the reaction of feminists in France to publication of that aspect of your book?
La réaction à mes livres en France de la part des féministes est vraiment très, très faible parce que le féminisme en France n'existe pratiquement plus.
The reaction from the feminists to her books was very weak because feminism in France practically doesn't exist anymore.
En ce qui concerne ce que vous disiez précisément à propos des orgies, je pense que c'est vraiment, ça j'en suis persuadée, une invention des hommes. Et j'ai même une théorie un peu là-dessus. Mais nous vivons avec les hommes depuis très très longtemps. Et je pense que les femmes, certaines femmes, ont pu réussir à l'intérieur de dispositifs masculins de créer leur propre petit milieu où elles peuvent trouver leur plaisir à elles.
She does feel that it is likely more of widespread than one thinks, and that it is something that women enjoy. And she says we've lived with men for a very long time, and yet women have been able to carve out a little niche for themselves in which they can let their own personal pleasures and desires flower.
Oui, je pense que c'est presque quelque chose qui relève de l'écologie. C'est-à-dire qu'une femme peut, à l'intérieur d'une organisation masculine, créer son propre petit environnement pour le plaisir.
It's almost as precise as an ecology, a balance, that within a man's world and environment, a woman can create her own little ecosystem in which to thrive.
Oh. D'abord, j'ai écrit ce second livre parce que lorsque je faisais des présentations en public, comme aujourd'hui, de la vie sexuelle de Catherine M., il y avait toujours quelqu'un pour me poser la question sur la jalousie.
I wrote the second book mostly because whenever I was doing presentations about the first book, everyone always asked me about jealousy.
Alors, celle que j'ai vécue, et peut-être il y a d'autres formes de jalousie, mais celle que j'ai vécue et que je décris, que j'essaye de décrire dans mon livre, je pense qu'elle est moins un sentiment qu'elle n'est en fait une pulsion sexuelle, très brute.
She says the jealousy that she felt, and she believes there are different forms of jealousy, but the one specific to her was less of an emotion and more of a pulsion, like an urge, a sexual urge, rather than an emotion.
Et en fait, ce que j'ai essayé de comprendre justement à partir de ma propre expérience, c'était comment quelqu'un qui est, on vous l'a dit, comme moi, une intellectuelle, avec une philosophie plutôt libre, plutôt une philosophie libertine, comment une personne aussi éduquée pouvait être un jour submergée par une pulsion aussi primitive.
What's surprising to her is that being the intellectual woman that she's been touted as and described, being an intellectual, what surprised her was how she could be one day completely submerged by this pulsion, this urge that was so primitive.
I apologize that time is running out, but we are all so grateful to learn a lot of you about emotional performance and just the courage to show emotions. I think this is one point we all take with us, and I thank you so much for coming.
Thank you to you.
Thank you for listening.